Hey Facebook gang, it's Bob bringing you Positive Vibe Session 114. I'm revisiting a topic that I have attempted to do a couple of times and never really came through on. Wasn't exactly sure how to handle it, but through a conversation with a good friend of mine today, got on the topic of asking for help. So this is something that's near and dear to my heart. I think it's something that many people struggle with on a regular basis. And it's this idea of asking for help when you need it. And it's very easy sometimes to do with more mundane things like, physical labor, like, can I help you with your groceries? But when it starts to get into the mental aspects, when people need help with their own suffering or their own sort of mental state, when they're struggling with something, it becomes very hard to ask for help, and it becomes very hard sometimes for people, even when they recognize it, to ask somebody else if they need help for want of prying or just getting too personal. But I think it's really necessary in this day and age, and it's actually, to me, a sign of strength when you can ask for help. So I've been talking to my friend Dell, and Dell's gonna just share a few of his thoughts on asking for help. So enjoy this, and we'll close it out here in a minute, and we'll get you to Positive Vibe Session 115 tomorrow.
Thanks, Bob. This came about when we were talking about, like, just in general, like the value of Bob's videos, and I'm like, I watch his videos, and then I noticed over the last kind of couple of weeks or months or so that they've kind of like they've been less because he's been very busy and looking for topics. And one of the biggest things for me is, like, when I look at the things that Bob does, I lose my I'm very methodical during the morning, and then I kind of fall apart as the day goes on. But like when I wake up in the morning, I make my coffee, I say a couple thoughts, prayers, etc. Do my medicine, whatever needed, and then I do a small workout. But part of that is, like, I'll listen to, like, some podcast, and usually it's been Bob's videos that I've been listening to. And I noticed as they've gone away, it's like we were talking about, like, the value of them, and I'm like, even when people don't respond, that there's huge value to those, because a lot of people will never come to you and say, hey, I need some help. And we were talking about the whole physical labor. Like, I have no problem asking my neighbor or anybody, almost not a stranger, but people, like, hey, I've got a pallet of bricks here, or some mulch, can you help me move it to the backyard? Or I've got a problem with my car, hey, can you help me with that? No problem at all. But if I ever wanted to ask that same neighbor, hey, can you just sit with me for a little while? I want to bounce something off you. I was struggling with something or whatever. It would be very, very difficult for even me to do that unless I know you real well. With certain people, friends, etc., you can do that. But for a lot of people, it's tough. And for me, it would be tough to be able to, like, strike up that kind of a conversation as a guy. And then we were talking, like, to me, it's like, that's so hard to do, but yet it's so valuable to be able to get that kind of insight. And I think that the videos that Bob has done, I think, add value, like, in a huge way that probably he will never ever know, because there's a lot of people who will look at that and say, okay, I was struggling with whatever it might be. It could be a mental thing, an illness, or whatever it might be, but they're not going to sit down and talk to somebody. He brought up a conversation with someone who was trying to figure out a gas can. But he was able to help her, and she eventually said, yeah, I need some help. But I turned that around. It's like, if it were me and I couldn't figure out a gas can, and you came up to me, well, if you did, I'd probably be okay. But if a stranger came up to me, a guy stranger, and said, hey, you need some help with that gas can, I'd be like, no, absolutely not. I'm completely fine. I'm just biding time before I do it, And I think that the struggle for so many people is, like, hey, if it's a manual thing that both of us can recognize, the bricks, the mulch, the carburetor that I need help with, no problem doing it. But if it's something that is, like, not as tangible, emotional, or just struggling with something, whether it be, life or work or whatever it might be, there's a feeling, even though the person you're asking may not feel this way, there's this feeling that I think all of us have in our gut that they're gonna think I'm a big baby, so I'm not gonna ask them. I'll do what, like, so many dads did probably 20 years ago. Hey, just kind of hold on to those feelings, kind of bury them, don't share them, just sit on them. And I think that what Bob's videos do is like, okay, there are people that are struggling with these, and this video, though the topic, even if the topic doesn't apply to me, there's a value in it. And I think that what Bob's videos do is like, okay, there are people that are struggling with these, and this video, though the topic doesn't apply to me, there's a value in it. And I think that what Bob's videos do is like, okay, there are people that are struggling with these, and this video, though the topic, even if the topic doesn't apply to me, it makes me realize that, okay, these struggles, whatever they are real. And I just feel, I feel good, even if the topic is completely unrelated to me. For me, those morning, when I was listening to them, when they pop up, because they pop up one of the first things on my phone, I look forward to those. When people take the time to put their knowledge about how help you think about your problem. I don't think any of Bob's videos they may not solve anything. They're not meant to solve anything, but I feel like they will at least make people think about things a little bit differently. If it just causes you to be able to say, you know what, maybe I will ask my neighbor to sit down for a bit, or my friend to sit down a little bit and just talk. It does add so much value. So it came up because there was a little bit of a gap there, and I got worried, like I kind of need these, even though I don't use all of them. I do use all of them.
So I want to thank Del I put him on the spot on this occasion, but it's really important for me, and because it's a topic that I've wanted to address, and this is just the right time. So after I've taken the break, and I've sat multiple times over the last 2 weeks trying to figure out what it is I wanted to say and make sure that I was adding value and using people's time wisely and trying to give all of you something to really hold on to. That's the point where I needed help. That's the point where I needed a Kickstarter in that conversation. It, for me, is one of the most important things that we can do, is to express that vulnerability, to be able to identify those, I mentioned this before in that leadership training, to think about our thinking partnerships, to engage with people that maybe think differently than you, that can help get you over the hump, be that catalyst to overcome some barriers that you might be facing in your life. So, again, don't be afraid to reach out. I appreciate all the people that have spoken to me. Again, I had a situation in the last week where somebody confided in me that they're not somebody that reacts to these videos, they don't comment on the videos, but they find value and they look forward to them because it's meaningful in their life in some way, shape, or form. So that's the whole point. That's the intention. I just want to make sure that that we are all helping each other. As always, I hope that you all love each other. I hope that you teach and inspire each other every day, and I hope that you express gratitude for something for which you're thankful. Today, I'm grateful for this friendship with Del and our ability to communicate and talk about things that are going on in our lives and that we can help each other with. So we'll talk to you for Positive Vibe Sesh number 115. Maybe it's tomorrow. Maybe it's later. I don't know, but we're back after it, and thanks again to Del for helping out today. Cheers.